Hello everyone and welcome to my little guide on how to use and navigate the D&D Beyond character sheet. This is for the benefit of my party. However, if it does be of benefit to anyone else, then cool, crack on. So we're going to start off and try and be quick. So the very top left of the sheet, you'll have your character's information. So you'll have a little picture that you've set, the name, gender, race, class, and then level. If you click on the cog, you will get options on the side, as you can enable or disable the dice rolling feature that's part of D&D Beyond. You can edit your character, manage your levels. Don't potch with that stuff without your DM knowing about it. Short and long rest buttons, and then these four things here are just to customize yourself, so you can change the framing around your character, little colors around your borders and things, and then preferences if you want to change certain options on the website itself. Not a whole lot to worry about there. Top right, you've got your short rest and long rest buttons, as well as a builder thing to go into the managed character. It kind of does stuff that's in here, so you haven't got to worry too much about that. So for the sheet itself, the important bit, very top left, you have your ability scores, or stats as I prefer to call them. So there we have strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, charisma. The big numbers are the stats that you roll or pick or choose, and then the littler numbers below that are your modifiers that come from them. Typically that's between -5 and +5. Hopefully nobody's got a -5 because that's awful. But essentially these modifiers are what gets applied to your saving throws, your skills, and certain attacks and spells that you have. All of your numbers come from this, as well as your proficiency bonus. And speaking of which, this box is your proficiency bonus, which goes up incrementally as you level up. Certain levels, it kind of jumps up to a +3, and then a +4, and a +5, etc., etc., etc. And then next to this is your walking speed. This number may vary depending on what race you pick. Typically, it's between 25 and 35, standardly 30. And that is essentially how far you can travel in a round of combat. So how far you can travel in 6 seconds when the combat situation kind of picks up. It also kind of determines how far you can travel in a day and things, but I wouldn't get too bogged down about that. Next to this is a little box called Inspiration. So depending on your DM, they may or may not use this. For my people, I use cards. So if I say you've got a card, you click on this box, and then that little sunrise pops up just to indicate you've got one. And then once you've used it, you click on it again just to take it away so you know that it's gone. The very top right, we have your hit points, or HP, or health points, whatever you want to call them. This is one of the features I love about D&D Beyond. It saves a bunch of maths. Left hand side you have your current hit points, as it says there, and on the right hand side you have your maximum hit points, and on the far right is temporary hit points. We wouldn't worry about that too much just now. But yeah, so if you ever get hit, so the DM says the rat attacks you for 4 piercing damage, you type in 4 into the empty box, click on damage, bump, it just does it for you. And then your trusty cleric pops over and heals you for 6. Type in 6, click on heal, bump. Similarly, if you go to a negative, so if you actually get knocked unconscious, it automatically goes into the death saving throw kind of screen. And then you can select if you failed 3 times, or if you've had some successes, or if you get healed. You just pop that back in there, so you come all the way back up to where you should be. And that's that. Next box that's important up at the top is your initiative. So at the very, very, very start of a combat situation, your DM will say, okay, everyone roll initiative. You roll a d20, add the modifier that's inside, typically based on dexterity, but there are certain other things that affect it as well, feats and things. But if I ever ask you to roll initiative, this is where you want to look to know what you're adding, and then initiative determines your place in combat, whether you're first, or the middle somewhere, or the bottom. It's an important number. Next to this is another very important number, which is your armor class, or AC. And essentially, the number represents how easy or difficult it is to hit you. So for Jimmy Jim Bob here, his AC is 13, which just means that I need to roll a 13 or higher to hit him in combat. So always make a note of your AC. Next to this are your defenses and conditions. So for example, if Jimmy Jim Bob has just drunk a potion that makes him immune to fire, then you will click on the defenses tab, choose your options to become immune to now he's drunk a cold one, and then they all appear there. And similarly, once it runs out, you just remove them and they're gone. Conditions, you get bitten by a spider and you become poisoned. You click on the box and then just toggle it on, and then it appears there just for your reference so you know that you are poisoned. And if you're ever in doubt of what that means, you click on it and it shows you exactly what it does mean right below. Similarly, you become frightened, so you can click on frightened as well. And then what does that actually mean? You click on it and then it gives you a bunch of information about what it actually means. Let's take them away though, because Jim Bob's a heroic man. And that's them. Next important one are your saving throws. So at certain instances when a spell is cast on you or a trap gets triggered or wherever, your DM will ask you to make a particular saving throw. STR means strength, DEX means dex, CON means constitution, int is intelligence, wiz is wisdom, and cha or ka is charisma. And these numbers are based on the big numbers from your ability scores, and also certain ones have proficiency, so it pulls those numbers across as well. And other things come from your race and your background and all that kind of stuff. So if I ever ask you to make a saving throw, always try and come to this top left section to figure out what you're adding to your d20. Similarly, certain races have advantage on certain things. So for example, if you pick an elf, you'll notice in there that there'll be a circle, a green circle with an A inside it, and then it'll say advantage against charm effects. And that's just a point of reference for you, just to be like, okay, so someone's casting a charm spell on you, you look here just to see if you have got advantage against that, and etc. Below this is a box for your senses. These are passive things that exist. So you have passive wisdom perception, passive intelligence investigation, passive wisdom insight. Passive perception is your character's innate ability just to perceive the surroundings. So you walk into a room, and if your stat is high enough, you might be able to just automatically see a little pickpocket sneaking their hands into someone's bag. Whereas if your passive perception is low, you wouldn't notice that information unless you made an active perception roll that was high enough. Similarly, passive investigation is all about if you're in a dungeon kind of environment, just your character's ability to pick up on things like maybe a secret button or a hidden door frame or something like that. And if it's obviously low, you don't really get to pick up on much information unless it's quite obvious. And then the same for passive insight. It's your character's innate ability to read body language and kind of pick up on tone through voice, just to gauge those extra bits of information. The blank space below that is for certain characters. A lot of races have dark vision, for example, or if you've got blind sight or tremor sense for whatever reason, those things will be displayed down there along with the range that you can see them with. So all of your other senses go into there. And then finally for this section, the bottom left box is for your proficiencies and languages. So this will always show what army you're proficient to use, what weapons you can use, what tools, and what languages you know. So for armor and weapons and tools, if you don't see something in that list, then that essentially means you can't use it, or you have a severe penalty for trying to. So for Jim Bob, he can only really use light armor effectively. If you try to put on some plate armor, there's going to be a severe penalty involved. Similarly, if you tried using a martial weapon, or if he was trying to use an alchemy kit, then he's not going to be able to. Languages are important to know, just so you know you can speak Common, which most things can, and he can speak Halfling. So if he's interacting with a Halfling, they could speak in their own language, so the other characters don't get to know that information, or they have to try and forget it. Separate issue entirely. Or similarly, if they find some kind of magic book that's written in some foreign language that nobody understands, the DM might say, okay, so what languages can you all speak? You go through your list, and if nobody can match what that language is, you don't get that information. So it's an important thing just to know, and it's good with D&D Beyond, you can just quickly reference it. The very center of it all is your skills or abilities. So essentially this list is quite comprehensive, but for the most part governs pretty much everything your character might choose to do or has to do. So I'll quickly run through them. So if your character wants to do a backflip, that's an acrobatics check. If your character wants to try and pet the dog without it biting him, that's animal handling. Trying to understand what school of magic something belongs to, arcana. Trying to do a dwarf toss across the tavern floor, then that's athletics. You're trying to lie to someone, that is deception. If you're trying to recall some information, history. If you're trying to glean some information from someone's body language, insight. If you're trying to scare someone to do what you want them to do, intimidation. If you are looking for traps on that box you found, investigation. If you want to see if that little person is poisoned, medicine. If you want to figure out what kind of plant that is, nature. If you're trying to perceive something happening in the room, perception. You're trying to impress people with your flute performance, performance. You're trying to coerce someone to doing what you want to do in a nicer way, persuasion. You found some religious text and you want to find out more information about it, religion. You want to pick someone's pocket, sleight of hand. You want to sneak around that corner, stealth. And you want to track someone's footprints, survival. And then anything else skill-wise will appear down here based on certain things. And that's it for the most part. And then we get into the nitty-gritty of the actual sheet itself, and that is everything your character can do and their physical aspects and traits. So a lot of this will depend on what options you pick. But the first tab you're taken to is for your actions. So at the start, it will always default to all. But as you should know by now, your turns in combat are split up between main actions, bonus actions, reactions, movement, and sometimes your characters will have other options or certain things they can limitedly do. So start off with, we have our, I'll stay in all, but if you filter through them, it breaks it down into specific things. So we'll start with attack. I want to stab that rat with my longsword. So that will appear here because I've got it equipped. And I'll show you some other stuff in a second in the equipment section. But I'm going to use my longsword. So I find longsword. I can see how far it can hit. So anything within a 5-foot square of you. The box next to this is the modifier you add to your d20 to hit them. And then the box to the right of that is the damage the weapon deals. So this shows two numbers because the weapon is versatile, means you can use one-handed or two-handed. So it shows you both options. So I'm going to attack the rat, and I roll to hit. So I chuck my dice out, and then I know I've rolled a 5. I get to add 2 to it, so does a 7 hit? Probably not. But if it did hit, then it would be a case of, okay, roll damage. So I'm using one-handed, I roll my damage, so I roll the d8. I don't get to add anything to it, because Jimmy Jim Bob is not a very strong boy. And that just kind of gives you the numbers that you need to know. Similarly, your unarmed strike and all any other weapons you have equipped will appear here. Your longbows, your short bows, all that fun stuff. If you click on the action tab in particular, though, it does show you what actions you can do in combat using that part of your turn. So you can attack, cast a spell, dash, disengage, dodge, grapple, help, hide, improvise, ready, search, shove, use an object. If you're ever in doubt, and that's one thing I love about D&D Beyond, is you can always click on something to see what it actually means. So I'm sitting here and thinking, okay, what does improvise mean? You click on it, and then you get to read up on what that actually means. It's a good way for you to just to get some of that stuff from the rule books without actually having the rule book and flicking through the pages. Then obviously you go into your bonus actions. It's set up a similar way. If you've got offhand weapons, like he's got a little dagger in his other hand, you'll see that here. So I'll be like, okay, I'm going to do a long sword with one hand, and then with the other hand, I'm going to stick the dagger into the neck. Same deal. But here you can see that the range is 20 and 60. So the first number means if I'm throwing the dagger, or for bows will be the same, but a bit of a bigger number. So it can travel 20 foot, okay, and then it can go up to 60 foot, but you'd have disadvantage if it's further than 20. That's essentially what that means. And then other bonus actions like the Bardic Inspiration and anything you've picked for your class and class options and feats will appear here as necessary. Reactions are typically just opportunity attacks, but certain classes and spells have certain other things. So it's a good way just to know what you can do in combat, so you're using your full turn to its full potential, really. The next tab is for your spells, if you are a spellcaster. This list defaults to all, so you can see all of your cantrips, and then all of your first levels, all your second levels, and then so on when you're higher level. You can filter between just cantrips, first level, second level. A C and a diamond means concentration spells, which obviously you can only cast one of unless you've got a certain feat. And then R and a book is a ritual, so something you can cast without actually using a spell slot if you spend some time doing so. One of the other things I really love about spells on D&D Beyond is you can see what spell slots you have, and an easy way to track them is Jimmy Jim Bob casts Sleep. So you see Sleep, and you click Cast, boom, it automatically marks one of them off for you. So he spent all of his turns casting spells, and then once all those spell slots are gone, they get grayed out, so it's a representation for you to know that you can't cast that spell anymore, or you can't use that specific leveled spell slot anymore. And yeah, numbers at the top. So the +3 modifier is for any spells that I have to roll to hit a creature. I get to roll a d20 and add a 3 to it. He hasn't actually got any of them in his list, but that would also be in this middle section where it says hit DC. It would be there as well. And on the right hand side you have your save DC, which essentially means if Jimmy Jim Bob casts Fireball at the group of enemies, then with Fireball all of the creatures affected have to make a Dexterity saving throw. So your DM would then say, okay, so what's the save DC for that? That will tell you. It's also good to just note it next to the actual spells that do have a save. So hit DC will show the save DC as well, and what actual type of saving throw it is, whether it's a wisdom saving throw or a charisma saving throw. It's good to reference the actual table next to the spells, because sometimes you may have a bonus to certain ones over others, so know where to look on this. And similarly, we'll go through the spell list itself. So you have your spell name, you have how long it takes to cast. So 1A means one action, 1BA means one bonus action, and 1R would mean one reaction. So for like Hellish Rebuke and things. Next to the time it takes to cast is the range of the spell, so how far it can travel. Next to that is your plus to hit or the save DC for whatever the spell is. Next to that is the effect or damage of the spell. So some of them, like Charm Person, the effect of it is the creature is charmed. Some of them, like Healing Word, will show you what actual healing you do. And then damaging ones and things as well will have the same kind of deal there. And the heart just represents its healing, whereas that kind of represents it being psychic damage, and etc, etc. If you need to add a spell to your list, you click on Manage Spells. So we'll pretend that Jimmy Jim Bob didn't know the light cantrip, and he's got a space slot now. We can go on here, so we'll go back so we can reset it. So Manage Spells, these are everything he knows. You can add spells, and then you can literally see every spell available to Jimmy Jim Bob or your representative character. So Jimmy Jim Bob wants to start learning Minor Illusion. You just click on the spell, see what it does. Cool, he likes that. Clicks on Learn, bump, there it is. This is another way for you to track your spell slots if you want to do it that way, but it's easier on there. It's a good way to see it at a glance, I suppose. And you can use this box to filter through your spells. So you want to find Healing Word in particular. Like, oh yeah, there it is. Next to this is the equipment section. So the very top left is the weight that you're currently carrying, and this depends entirely on if your DM is using encumbrance rules or not. I do, because I'm a dick. But this is where you'll get to track how much weight you're actually carrying. If you click on the number, you can see the carrying capacity for your character as well. So I know Jimmy Jim Bob can pretty much double what he's carrying. He's pretty safe. It also shows you what you can push, drag, or lift, and all that kind of stuff. And you know how much weight is from items and how much weight is from the coins you're carrying. This limit is dependent on your strength, but I wouldn't get too bogged down about that. Top right of this is your currency. Another reason why I love D&D Beyond is it saves so much maths in terms of buying stuff. So Jimmy Jim Bob just looted a chest. He found 5 platinum pieces, 32 gold pieces, an electrum for some reason, 13 silver pieces, and 58 copper pieces. You type it all out, you click add, boom, there it is. And the good thing about it automatically calculates it for you in the worth in gold as well, just so you know roughly how much gold you have without doing mental maths to convert stuff. But then Jimmy Jim Bob goes home after his long haul, and he wants to buy everyone a round of drinks. So he dumps down 12 gold, 34 silver, and 64 copper pieces. Trying to calculate that quickly in your head is going to take some time, but D&D Beyond lets you just type in the numbers, you click remove, poof, automatically does it for you. Perfect. The bits below that, you can filter, so you can try and find, okay, do I have a healing potion? You just type in healing, like, oh, there it is, wonderful. Or you can just manually look, up to you, whichever you prefer. Manage equipment is to add stuff, we'll get to that in a second. So I will show you this bit here. So these boxes on the left hand side, by default, when you get an item, it's just a blank square. So you'll either see hyphens or you'll see a blank square. The square represents it's an item that can be equipped on your character, whereas everything else is just items you can use or wear or have on you but not actually physically use or have any benefit to you. So Jimmy Jim Bob has Boots of Elvenkind. He pops them on, and you notice with certain magic items, Boots of Elvenkind give you advantage on stealth rolls. So in the skills section now, you can see this little A within the hexagon to show you as a representation that you have advantage if you ever have to make a stealth check, which essentially means you roll 2 d20s, take the higher number from the dice, and then add 4 to it. It just gives you more chance of succeeding, essentially. Another good thing is you notice now in my attacks that my longsword has disappeared as well as my dagger. So if you don't see things, there's because they've not been equipped on your character. So I will quickly take that off so I can show you something else in a second. So I've got my longsword on. I've got my dagger equipped. My AC is currently 12 because I'm naked. I chuck my leather armor on. It automatically updates it for you. Go to my actions now, and I can see the longsword and the dagger within my attack actions. But I'm using my dagger in my offhand, so it should be as a bonus action. So to change this, you click on the dagger, you click on customize, and then you click on dual wield, and that will automatically then shift it to go from the action to the bonus action. It's a nicer, quicker way for you to just reference stuff much easier. So in terms of the items themselves, you'll see whether it's an item that you can equip or an item that just exists on you, the name of the item, and what kind it is, dagger, dual wield, little notes about it. Next to that is the weight of the item, how much it weighs, and then it obviously in turn adds to the total of your weight carried. Next to that is quantity, so how much of the item do you have on you? I got 5 candles for some reason. I got 1 potion, but I have just looted a chest and it gave me another potion. So I click on the potion, I click on plus there, and now I've got 2. The number left of that, right of that, sorry, is the cost in gold of how much it would cost you to buy the item in a shop. It's good for reference, but certain people will try and con you and stuff, so I wouldn't get too bogged down about that. Next to that is location, so where the item is equipped on you. So obviously the boots go on your little tootsies, your dagger and your longsword are weapons in your hands, your leather armor goes onto your little sexy body, other stuff will appear there, and then there's just general notes on the right hand side about what it does and all that kind of thing. So I've just looted, and now I have found a wonderful cloak that my wizard identified as a cloak of Elvenkind. I just type in the number there, not the number, I type in the name of the item there, and there it is. I can see what it does. I click add, and then that pops up here. I click on it to equip it, and any benefits will apply to wherever they need to be. But now we get to the attunement section. So the Cloak of Elvenkind requires the person to attune to it. So any attuned items, they won't give you the benefits in D&D Beyond unless you actually put it in this space. So to do that, any attunable items will appear here on the right hand side. You just click on the box, and there it is. Wonderful. And you get to see a little picture of what it looks like. At the bottom are your other possessions, so random little trinkets and things you have. Currently, Jimmy Jim Bob's got a love letter and a bird feather. He is a bard, so he probably has a condom. You can just write that in there, click save, and then there it is. But obviously, we don't want that there because that's rather vulgar. Jimmy Jim Bob's a good bard. Next to this, and the last lot of things, are things that you've picked and chosen and described for your character. So not necessary entirely, but features and traits is handy because it just gets you a reminder of the proficiencies you have picked. Your spellcasting information, so I can just reference that charisma is my spellcasting modifier, and any other class abilities like bardic inspiration or sneak attack and wild shape, they'll all appear in here as well as any other class benefits that you have. Then there are your racial traits, so everything that comes from the race you pick. And then finally, feats or features, if your DM uses them, they will appear down here. And you can also filter this specifically between class features, racial traits, and feats, just so it's easier for you to find stuff. Next slot is description. So the first tab is for your background, what background you picked when you created your character, and then the feature that comes from it. So it's good for me to be like, okay, what did the bard give me again? And my entertainment background. Essentially, I can stay in inns and taverns and stuff for free or whatever. Characteristics are the personality traits you've given your character, so everything you need to embody when you roleplay, if you're doing it right. Wink, wink. So we got alignment, chaotic good, you got your gender, your eye colour, your size, your height, your faith, your hair colour, your skin tone, your age, your weight. Just little visual representations for you to just be like, oh shit, what colour's my hair again? Oh yeah, it's brown. So you know where to go to find that stuff. And if you don't know what chaotic good is, you can click on it and you can see what what chaotic good actually means. If something happens and your alignment changes, I become lawful good instead. I'm a do-gooder now. You change that there and it shows you what that means, as well as, the lifestyle you've picked. So that's not too important. I wouldn't worry about that. To be honest, it's kind of a stupid thing to have there. But that's kind of like for downtime. If you're doing a bit of a time jump, if you live a modest lifestyle, you'll be spending 1 gold per day for your food and drink and all that kind of stuff. It's just a little thing, not to worry about though. Below this are your personality traits, so little things you can cue, just so you remember what decisions you're making. So for Jimmy Jim Bob, he knows a story relevant to almost every situation. This guy does never shut the fuck up. Kind of like me at the moment. So it's just little things, so if a situation pops up, you're like, oh shit, what does my character do about new people? If your character was like hesitant to new people, you'd have wrote that there, so okay, I need to be a little bit more apprehensive. Ideals, things that they kind of aspire to do or believe in, all of those kind of things go there. Some very special item, personal place goes in bonds, and my favourite are the flaws of your character, so issues with your personality that could cause problems in certain situations. I'm a big fan of a flaw. The more the better for me, to be honest. So like I got a fear of spiders. I love pretty women. I can't help but steal that shiny bauble. The last tab is for your appearance. So you can go full on into this to be like, okay, well I've got, chiseled jawline and a full on goatee, with a little braided beard bit that stretches down to my navel. And I've got a nipple pierced, and I've got tattoos going down the whole left side of my body, and a scar going down there. You just go for it, but it's just a good way for you to have a full-on description so you can embody and visualize your character, and also describe what they look like to other people. It's good. Next are your notes. So the notes are things you should take down. Most people use pen and paper or pencil and paper. I like to use the notes section in DNDBeyond though to kind of organize those notes into a structured way. So the top is organizations that your character is aware of. So Jimmy Jim Bob was part of the Dancing Smiles Travelling Troupe. He's been in Waterdeep for a while though, so he's aware of the Xanatar's Guild. He's also aware of the Zentarim. And he knows that they have warehouses all over the dock ward, for example. You can just type in your quick notes, you can quickly reference stuff. You can have things like led by Doom Raiders or Manchun, just so you know your little notes, and you can just put them there so you can read them. Next, your allies. So he's friends with other bards, Floon and Vax, but he's just met new allies, which is the party. So he's now friends with Cyrozal and Cade and Rowan and Xander and Zach and Omadon. You can just add them all there in quick notes, like Ginger Guy, crazy halfling. Just things for you to remember, things that's going on. Similarly, you have your enemies tab. So already there is Xanathar, and then you write down that he has a lair somewhere in the sewers of Waterdeep, and you are currently looking for the secret entrance. It's little cues for you to be able to note down the situation. So if you kind of get sidetracked by the arena fight, you can come back here and be like, oh shit, yeah, we're trying to find Xanathar's lair. And then it just brings you back to where you need to be. Your backstory will be displayed below that, and obviously that's going to be as comprehensive as you make it. I try to make them a little bit kind of detailed, so I tend to get a bit of childhood, a bit of teenage years, what happened, why they became adventurers, and how they are now in the situation that we started the campaign in. And then the last bit are just the random notes. So you might be like, waifs and strays located in the North Ward of Waterdeep. It's just little random bits you might want to chuck in here and there. The last tab are for your extras. So this is typically for pets and companions and familiars and things, or your wild shapes as a druid. So Jimmy Jim Bob has a warhorse, but now he's got a new little cat as a pet. So you click on Manage Extras, add an extra, choose an extra, pet. And we're going to find the little cat, we add it, and there it is. So for example, someone breaks into my house, and there's a fight that breaks out in the bedroom. They hit over the lantern, which smashes over the cat. The cat takes damage. I'm like, oh shit, how much hit points has a cat got? Unfortunately, 2. So my cat's now dead. It's just a way for you to do that. But if I only took 1 point of damage from like someone kicking out of the way, you can click on the cat, click on hit points, take 1 away, apply, boom, take another 1 away. Oh shit. So it's just a good thing to do. And in essence, that is the D&D Beyond character sheet. There's not much more I really need to add. I can touch on one thing though, and that are in your saving throws and your skills. You'll notice blank boxes, black boxes, half boxes, and black with a circle. So a blank box essentially means you're not proficient with it. It's just a skill you roll based straight on the stat. So wisdom saving throw, I don't have proficiency with that. It's just the +1 modifier from wisdom. Dexterity saving throws, however, is a black dot, which means I am proficient with it. So, proficiency bonus and your stat, so I get a +2 and a +2, so it becomes a +4. If dexterity became a 16, that would become a +3, and D&D Beyond automatically calculates these things for you. So let me just override that so you can see it's all automatic and just lovely. So it's become 16. I click that, and now you can see it's a +3, you got a +2, this is a +5. Similarly, then in the skills, it's the same deal. Most of you will have blank boxes rather. You'll have your black ones, which means proficient. Black and white means half proficient, so bards have a jack of all trades, so anything they're not proficient with, they get half proficiency with. And then finally are your expertise for the rogues and the bards. It's a black dot with a circle, which means this is a skill that you excel at, and that's like your main strength. But that's pretty much it. There's, as I said, you can click on anything to see what it does, what it means. What's that? What's this? What's that mean? You can just click on things and it'll always tell you what it is. Very handy for the spells list, to be honest, because this doesn't give you much information. But what does Calm Emotions do again? Click it and be like, oh yeah, I remember. But that is essentially the D&D Beyond character sheet, and I hope that helps and makes things much easier for you to navigate in the future sessions. It makes things a bit easier for me. Okay, thanks. And a quick thing I forgot to add into the video was if you need to add a custom item, so you've looked at a book, but the book doesn't exist for herbalism, you would go to equipment and then manage equipment. You would click on custom items, add a custom item, click on an identified item and then whatever number happens to be there. And say for this example, I have looted a, oops, sometimes that happens, you got to be careful with where you click. But it's quick to get back to. So I've looked at a book, and it was a book on harvesting monster bits. So you can just type in the title for your reference. Your DM will probably tell you a weight if they use an encumbrance, and this book is a big chunkier one and it weighs a big £4. In the description you could just write something so you're aware of what it is. So it contains information on how to successfully carve out useful pieces of a monster. And then once you've done that, you will then notice it appear within your inventory with the pound weight. If it did have a price associated, that would go there as well, and any other notes. So if you wanted to, just you can see things a bit better in the notes bit, you can just write in book. Yeah, so then it just kind of filters it on that way. And yeah, as you can add custom items.